Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped, and welcome to the brand new Aston Martin DBX. Now, if you've been following my channel for any length of time, you will probably know by now that I'm a bit of a fan of Aston Martin, and I've been lucky enough in my time to have driven many different types of Aston Martin, and to be frank, I think I've loved them all. But I've been really looking forward to that one. And I don't think I'm understating it here. That's a really important car to Aston Martin. Arguably, the success of the company long term relies on that car entering new markets, especially in the US and China, going into this SUV bracket. In fact, it's so important. Not only is that car based on a brand new platform specifically designed for DBX, they even built a factory specifically to make the car as well at St Athan. And therefore it's really, really important. But in this video, I want to ask 4 simple questions. Firstly, Aston Martins are known for their beauty and their elegance and their styling. So I want to ask the question, does that car look like an Aston Martin should? Second, Aston Martin interiors are always a beautiful place to be, highly spec'd, very comfortable, very luxurious. So, question number 2, does that car have an interior to match my Aston Martin expectations? Question number 3, pretty much any Aston Martin you ever drive is just going to sound amazing, V8 or V12. So my third question is, does that car sound like an Aston Martin? And then finally, they all drive pretty well as well. So I'm going to ask a very simple question. Does that drive good enough to be considered an Aston Martin? 4 simple questions, 4 complex answers, I think. But let's start off with question number 1. Does it look like an Aston Martin? Well, if we start at the front, there is no mistaking that this is an Aston Martin. It has Aston Martin family DNA all over it. And I think it looks really beautiful. It's just bigger. So much bigger, in fact, that they needed to increase the size of the Aston Martin wings on the front here so it didn't kind of get lost in the massive bonnet. I really like the lamps. Obviously the front grille is much bigger. I love little details like this though. So this is the air intake for the brake cooling, and there's a daytime running light running around the outside of that. Love that. Front end though, for me, pretty much on the money. I also like these bonnet grille louvre openings with a little carbon fibre blade on there. It just gives it that kind of sports car edge and lets you know that there's something under there that's going to propel you down the road at a rate of knots. And that shark-like front end makes this car look purposeful. So I think the front end's pretty much there for me. If there's any debate about the looks of this car, for me it's likely to be at the back. Now, I think if there's any debate as to the looks of this car, it's likely to be the rear view. I see lots of Vantage in this car, and thankfully though, it's got decent size exhausts, unlike the Vantage. And I do like that on this particular spec car, that big carbon diffuser, although I'm not sure how practical that would be if you were ever going to tow anything with this car. Now, you can tow up to 2.7 tons, which is unusual because normally cars of this size, it's 3.5 tons. But I'm not sure how many people will actually tow with one of these anyway. But I think the challenge for the designers is, you either go big or go home, and they certainly went big, and that's going to tick lots of people's boxes, but it's probably going to not be for everybody. I quite like the little duck spoiler on the end here, and I certainly like this top wing on top of the glass. I just think it makes the rear of the car look really nice. And then from a boot point of view, now I have done a detailed walk around this car already. I will put a card above. You've got 480 litres of boot space. You can drop the seats. You can get a lot of stuff in here. Interestingly, the floor, underneath the floor, there's a real wheel. Fantastic. You don't see them anymore in cars, do you? But yes, so I think actually the rear of this car is pretty good. But I know some people won't like it. Let's have a quick walk around the side of the car and then we'll jump inside. I think the standout feature for the side profile is first of all the length of the wheelbase, and secondly the 22-inch alloys. Now, all the different wheel choices, they're all 22-inch. Got a range of different tyres. You can have summer tyres, all-season tyres, or winter tyres. And then I really like this strake that comes out of the side wheel arch there to release the high-pressure build-up in the front wheel arch. But all in all, side profile just looks sleek and elegant. But it's time to jump inside. Oh, okay. Firstly, the smell test. Yep, smells like an Aston Martin. There's so much leather in here. In this particular spec with this kind of burgundy leather, I love the real wood finish. It's something you don't see in a lot of cars. Now, everybody specs carbon fibre and stuff, but I quite like that in here. This floating centre console, and there's a wireless charge mat for my smartphone under there. I think that's very elegant. The technology in here now, for an Aston Martin, it's up to date, but it is looking a little bit old school now. No touchscreen on the main display. It's straight out of Mercedes-Benz, obviously. But everything else in here is really nice. One of the things they have done compared with Vantage and DBS Superleggera is they've taken the driving mode buttons off of the steering wheel and put them down here on the center console. We'll talk more about those when we're driving. It has a round steering wheel, unlike DBS Superleggera. Really lovely fixed paddles as well. I like those very much. And a completely digital front display, but it still follows the, the Aston Martin thing with the rev counter going the wrong way. Very light and airy cabin. I've got a glass panoramic roof in this, although you can pull the shade across if you want. These seats are just derived from DB11. They're very comfortable. And the really clever trick for me actually is that although it's an elevated driving position, I'm kind of sat quite low into the car. So I get an elevated driving position, but feel like I'm sat low down in a sports car. And that's a really clever trick to pull off. I think it's about time we just started driving this car, because I think we've answered the first two questions. For me, it looks like an Aston Martin from the outside. It's got so much family DNA within it. And then it's got that little extra thing as well, that SUV styling. In here, definitely an Aston Martin. And I even really lovely things like you've got the speaker grille there with leather covering it. It's just opulent and beautiful in here. The headline is this kind of lovely velour. It's just, wow. And it smells fantastic. So yes, first two questions, definitely yes from me. What was the next question? Oh yeah, does it sound like an Aston Martin? So now we're out driving, let's talk about how much noise this thing makes. And actually, let's start by talking about what's under the bonnet. So, as in Vantage, we've got a 4-litre AMG-derived V8. Apparently, they've just changed the firing order a little bit to make it more appropriate for an SUV. And that's producing quite a lot of power, actually. So we've got 542 bhp and 512 foot-pounds of torque. And that's a lot, because that will propel this rather large SUV to 62 in less than 4.5 seconds and onto a top speed of 180 miles an hour. So it's certainly going to go. There's no doubt about that. But when you're in normal GT mode and normal fully automatic gearbox mode, it's a really quite unassuming car. It doesn't really make a massive noise. However, what you want to do noise is start changing the drive modes. Now I'm currently in GT mode and there is a threatening rumble under the bonnet, but it's not doing anything too drastic. So as I mentioned already, the drive mode selector is now on this center floating console. You can actually go up and there are some off-road modes, terrain and terrain plus, but I'm actually going to go down. And I'm going to go now through individual, where you can basically set things up how you want. But I'm going to go into sport mode. And just like it does in its siblings, that changes the note of the exhaust to make things sound just that little bit more dramatic. Oh, that's better. It sounds like an Aston Martin. Oh, it's quick too. Got a nice deep throaty rumble underneath your right foot now. Even in the days of all these horrible OPF filters and stuff, it doesn't sound too bad. The noise insulation in this cabin is so good, there's hardly any road noise at all. So it is, shielding the noise that's coming out the back of the car. I'm sure from the outside, I bet this car sounds absolutely epic. Right, and let's put this bad boy through its paces. What was the fourth question? Oh yeah, does it drive like an Aston Martin? Certainly got the acceleration. Oh my goodness me, how on earth the car of this size and mass accelerates like that? Wowzers. Turn of pace, definitely an Aston Martin. So the first thing to notice is, as soon as you start to push on, this car, which is a big car, suddenly shrinks in size. The steering weighting and the steering feel is really lovely. It's got a very direct, sharp nose on it. You wouldn't expect the turn-in to be quite as sharp. But then the thing that's impressive is when you do turn in, you'd expect it to roll like a barge, and it goes round flat like a sports car. How the hell have they done that? On the way up, that gearbox is proper quick actually. But it's the dynamic characteristics of this car that I just don't understand. It has this 48-volt activated anti-roll bar system that does clever things when you turn the car in. And talking to the guys this morning, apparently when they first started testing it, it was that good and kept the car that flat that the professional drivers that were doing the testing on the car didn't like it because it was just unnerving. So they dialed it back a bit to give the car a little bit of body roll. But listen, these big SUVs, you might not like the form factor. You might think that you don't get them, especially when you do a performance version like this. But for me, when you drive one of these things, the engineering that goes into them to make them perform dynamically like they do is simply sensational. This thing drives like a Vantage. Okay, so I've engaged Sport Plus. Now this backs the traction control off, but I have got a four-wheel drive platform underneath me biased towards the rear wheels. And I know a little bit of road that should fully test the dynamic handling characteristics of this big SUV. I think that's my plan anyway. It should be quite spectacular, I think. Let's just start off in second and... Well, how is it going round that corner so flat? I don't know. I honestly don't know how it's doing that. It's unbelievable. It's dug down a little bit there because I'm in fourth just to kind of test out the bottom end torque, but this thing's got so much grunt. Gearbox is pretty good, very fast on the way up. Every now and again you'll get a hesitation on the way down. But there is just, how on earth did it just do that? I am aghast. I think before this, maybe a car that's gone round corners as well as this, of this form factor, is maybe a Stelvio Quadrifoglio. But this thing, wow. Now then, two more driving tests I think we need to do. It'd be rude not to do a 0 to 60 test. And then we've got to take it off-road, right? Okay, straight bit of road, 0 to 60 test. 3, 2, 1, go. Wow, 60. Well, for a big car, that's impressive. So the last question I want to answer is, I think I've ticked the box to say this car drives like an Aston Martin on the public road. Absolutely. The way this thing goes around corners is ridiculous. It's just, I just don't understand how it's physically possible. But the last driving question I've got to ask, and I need to find an answer to, is what's this thing like off-road? Now, before anybody gets excited, I'm not going to go full-on mud plugging, because I doubt this car will ever do that. And if you're going to do that, you probably would buy a Range Rover anyway, because that is far better off-road, but this thing would eat a Range Rover on-road. But I think the kind of off-road driving this is likely to be experiencing with owners is, well, going shooting, because you can actually buy a Field Sports pack for the car that includes a gun case in the back. And luckily, I live on a farm with a chute, so I reckon we go and have an explore and find some pheasants. Aha! Here we are at the farm. However, I'm still in Sport Plus mode, and therefore the suspension is as far down as it can go, and that's probably not ideal for where I'm going. So all you need to do is I'm going to pull up, stop, and then hit the little up button on the mode, so go back up to GT, which is a bit of a faff. You have to go all the way through, and then you go up from GT to Terrain, and then Terrain Plus, and I can actually feel the car and the ride height of the car going up. And then once I'm there, it's more like it. Right, let's get going. This is more like it. Nice high ride height. Now, if you saw any of the videos that Aston Martin put out when they were developing this car, of it hammering round, you know, forest rally stages, you'll know it's a very capable off-road car. But for me, the vast majority of owners aren't going to take it anywhere near off-road. It's going to be in a Tesco car park or on the motorway or on a B road. But I think there is a legitimate use, I guess, either parking up on a polo field or when you go shooting. Now, there's a shoot at the back of the farm where I live, and I've been shooting a couple of times. And shoots generally, the access roads to them are a bit like this. Just, you know, the kind of road you probably wouldn't want to take a normal car down, but perfectly accessible by vehicle, and lots of wet grass. But beautiful countryside like that. And I think that's when this car might get pushed. On these standard road tyres, which are very wide, I don't think it's ever going to get asked to do a great deal of off-roading. But a shoot, definitely. Look, I know anybody who's done any off-road, this is not off-roading. This is driving down a bad B road in some parts of the UK. But I think certainly the being able to raise the ride height is super important for this car. Otherwise, you know, if you've got the kind of high middle of the road here, big bumps and lumps and so on, I think you would start to have a few problems. It soaks the bumps up. The ride height is really quite high. When you get out, you have to remember it's in high ride mode, otherwise you're in big trouble, because it's quite amusing. Wow, I just absolutely love it up here. But yeah, so this is one of the shooting positions for the shoot that we're heading to, and I've been up here on a shoot in a Range Rover as it happens. And obviously in the winter it's much wetter and slippier, but this is for me a good test. This is a realistic test. I wish I could take it proper mud plugging, and I've seen plenty of videos of this car doing stuff off-road that's very capable. But I think even Aston Martin agree that this is not an ultimate off-roader. However, the balance this car manages to have between on-road sports car performance almost and off-road capability with this increased ride height is, well, it's simply sensational. Absolutely sensational. Look at that for a view. Wow. I think we need to draw this video to a close, don't you? Wow. Wow. So, what are my final impressions of the Aston Martin DBX? It is a hugely impressive car in many aspects. Aesthetically, I think it's a major home run for that transition from a sports car into an SUV. To take the kind of family traits along is a really difficult thing to do, and I know some people might not necessarily like the back end of the car, but as I've mentioned already, I think it's pretty much on the money. The interior is beautiful, but for me it's the way that car drives. The way that anti-roll mechanism flattens the corners out is simply incredible, almost unnerving if I'm honest. The power delivery is super smooth. It's a very rapid car indeed. I guess the main issue for me is probably the price. They kind of start from around about £160,000, but I'm sure you can chuck some spec on the car, especially the shooting package I mentioned. That's £20,000 if you want one of those. But it's a very impressive car. Will it do for Aston Martin what Aston Martin want it to do? Well, I tell you what, they've given themselves the best chance possible, because it really is a very difficult car to fault. You'll notice in this film I haven't said many negative things about it, and that's because, to be honest, I haven't found many. Off-road capability, I haven't put it to the test today. It was just an excuse to come up and park with that in the background, to be honest. But the fact you can raise the ride height, you can see how high the car's sitting now, makes it a very capable kind of soft roader. Certainly when you want to get to a shoot, or you want to get out of a muddy car park, or you want to go up to the Alps skiing, that's the car for you, because on the way back you could blitz the Stelvio Pass or do the Red Rock Road. It's just an exceptional car, and then you can turn up to a really lovely private engagement and step out of there in your tux with your other half in a beautiful ball gown, and you could be outside the casino in Monte Carlo. Anyway, some thank yous I need to say. Massive thank you to Aston Martin Chichester and the Harwoods Group for reaching out to me. This is their car they've actually got from Aston Martin. Their demonstrator arrives within the next couple of days. So if you want to drive this car and you want to get a demonstration of just how good it is for yourself, I'll put the details below. This car's been flat out for the last 2 or 3 weeks. No surprises there. But big thanks for access to the car. I hope you've enjoyed this one. I'd love to know what you think of the new Aston Martin DBX. But if you've enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol for plenty more content to come, and I'll see you on the next film, guys. But you take care. With that beautiful view of the trundle behind me, stay safe. What a car!